All right, you can start.
Okay.
Recording?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My name is Murdock, and I'm going to be running through TRT protocol. So first thing we're going to do is do a leg check. So we're going to start by making sure the pelvis is lined up and get a straight line with his EOP to the center and the bottom of the table. And ideally we'd have a TRT table where there would be a 2-inch lift at the foot, and I would make sure that his foot was lined up with the table. Could you scoot up a little bit for me? So that a little bit more? Okay, that's perfect. So we want where his laces go to be right here at the edge. So I'll do a leg check using the functional leg length reflex. Can you scoot up just a little bit more for me? Sure. All right. All right, so I'm establishing the short leg. For this patient, we're going to have a right short leg. So once I've established the short leg, I'm going to start with possibility 2, and I'm going to have him turn his head to the long leg side. Should you turn your head this way for me? Good. I'll check again. If that bounces, that indicates cervical syndrome. All right, you go back to center for me. And for cervical syndrome, I will check a posterior rotated C1. I will just do a challenge and then recheck the legs. If that balances, then I will adjust that. I could also check for torque plus or minus, and I would also check for C5, and then check the legs, and then check for torque plus or minus. So then I would, if turning his head to the long leg side didn't balance the legs, then I would have him turn his head to the short leg side. Turn your head this way for me, and check. If that balanced, then that's what's called a wrong-in. And all right, back to center for me. So I would test the lateral atlas, and then I would go check the leg length, and then I could check plus or minus torque as well, and then adjust that. The adjustment for the wrong-in would be just like this, lateral to medial. And for the cervical syndrome test for C1, the line of drag would be anterior and superior, so it would be just like this, and then C5 would be like this. So if we had him turn his head to the long leg side and to short leg side, and the short leg changed on rotation, that would indicate a bilateral cervical syndrome. In that case, we would check first for PI occiput, find the EOP, pressure testing, and then the adjustment would look like this. And we would also check for torque on that. Then we check coccyx. So for coccyx, we're just going to palpate the coccyx, do a tissue pull up, and the line of drag would be just like this, and there would be no torque on that. We would also check for the sphenoid on the short leg side. So could you turn your head to this side for me? So I would challenge in the cardinal planes, the 4 cardinal planes. I could go this north, east, south, or west, and then whichever balanced the legs is how I would adjust. And the adjustment would be like this. I would do a tissue pull and then right in like this and fire. And then I would go and check, go center for me. I would check C5 next and do a challenge there, and check torque as well, and C1. Like this, and then T6. And the setup would look just like this. So that would be possibility 2. We next move on to possibility 1. We would have the patient, we would check the lateral occiput on the short leg side. So I'd find the EOP, come down and pressure test like this. If that balanced the legs, then I would do the setup just like this. And I would check plus or minus torque. The next thing I would do is I would check lateral sacrum. So I would do a broad contact first, and I would just do a challenge like this, and then check and see if it balanced the legs, and then I can go and check each sacral segment individually. I'd move on to the coccyx again, where I would palpate coccyx, tissue pull up, and fire like this. And then I would check, can you turn your head to this side for me? I would check sphenoid again, and checking in the 4 cardinal planes, and my fire and setup would look just like this. All right, back to setup for me. Next I'd move to possibility 3, which is the Deerfield test. So I would check and find the short leg here, and if I bring it up into this position and then slightly dorsiflex, if the short leg becomes long, that is a positive Deerfield. And from there, I'm going to check an AI sacral base. So I would palpate and do a challenge, and if it balanced the legs, then I would fire in this direction on the sacrotuberous ligament. And next is the AS trochanter, and the challenge is finding the greater trochanter and then challenging in a P to I line of drive, and then check the leg length. If that balanced the legs, then I would take the integrator and put on the greater trochanter and fire in this direction. And for the PI ilium, I would challenge by contacting the PSIS and bringing it anterior and superior. If that balanced the legs, I would contact the inferior PSIS and fire in this line of drive. And then finally, I would check the superior pubic rami. And this test is done by having the patient squeeze their knees together. Thank you. And if that balanced the legs, I'd have the patient flip over. Can you lay on your back for me, Trip? All right. And it's important to keep in mind that when he flips, the short leg switches sides. So this is his short leg side now. All right, Eddie, can you take your fingers and make this shape and put it in your belly button and just press down? Now can you find there's going to be a bone right there. All right, so I'm going to take the integrator. All right, you can lift your hand up. I'm going to fire in a superior, inferior, anterior, posterior line of drive just like this. All right, can you flip over onto your stomach for me? That's possibilities 1 through 3, and then 4 through 7, or 4 through 8 would be C2 or 3, C7, L3, L5, and then any other segment that you want to adjust, you just challenge and check